right now, your body is running on exactly 1% of its actual battery capacity.
Yeah, just 1%.
Right. And the other 99%, it isn't dormant. I mean, it isn't just sleeping. It is deliberately and honestly, aggressively locked away by your own biology.
So that it doesn't completely fry your nervous system, right?
Exactly. Today, we are opening the instruction manual for the human nuclear reactor. We are taking a hammer to that whole cliche image of Kundalini. You know the one, right?
Oh, yeah. The, someone in white linen pants sitting cross-legged in a cave.
Yes. Levitating an inch off the ground, talking in those soft, hushed, completely unquantifiable tones. We're discarding all that fluff. We're not talking about the caffeine in your morning coffee, and we're certainly not talking about a vague, vibe.
Not a vibe at all. The focus here is strictly mechanical.
We are looking at the literal, biological, high-voltage battery pack keeping you alive.
Because when you strip away the centuries of New Age mysticism that have really, obscured this topic, you're left with a highly precise system of physics and physiology.
It's pure mechanics.
Right. We are looking at the underlying engine of human consciousness and physical vitality, and maybe more importantly, we're examining what happens when that engine is mishandled.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand why the source material we are working with today is so incredibly precise, so devoid of the usual spiritual platitudes, we have to look at the author behind it.
We really do.
We are drawing from the teachings of Osman, who is widely known as the blind Muslim yogi. And right off the bat, reading through his material, the immediate impression is that this man is not a theoretical philosopher.
No, not at all. He's not sitting in an ivory tower hypothesizing about energy.
Right. He is a frontline practitioner.
Exactly. His entire framework is built on clinical life and death stakes. I mean, he specializes in critical care, advanced recovery, and terminal illnesses.
The stakes are as high as they get.
Yeah, and when your daily reality involves working with biological systems that are actively failing, metaphors are useless. You need mechanical interventions that produce tangible physiological results.
The phrase that kept looping in my head while reading his case studies was the ER surgeon of the energy world.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
But I have to stop us here and push back hard on behalf of you, the listener. Because Osman makes a claim in his material that for a pragmatic, analytical mind is incredibly difficult to swallow.
You're talking about the telepathy.
I am. He states that he performs this critical care healing telepathically. Now, I consider myself open-minded, but the word telepathy instantly sounds like, comic book magic. It sounds like science fiction.
It does.
How are we supposed to engage with that claim scientifically?
Well, the skepticism is completely warranted and, frankly, necessary. If we just accept the word telepathy at face value without a mechanism, we fall right back into the mysticism we're trying to avoid.
Right, which defeats the whole purpose.
Exactly. But we can ground this claim in two things. First, the mechanism of non-local energy transfer, and second, his specific, highly anomalous data set. Let's look at the resume first.
Let's hear it.
Osman attained his first samadhi, which is a state of total, frictionless, energetic coherence at the age of 19.
Wow. 19.
Yeah, so we're looking at 50 years of continuous, advanced yoga and meditation practice. And I mean advanced. For certain periods of his life, he was practicing up to 18 hours a day.
18 hours? That's almost a waking life.
It is. Currently, he maintains a baseline practice of 8 to 10 hours daily.
Just to maintain his own system.
To sharpen the sword, as he puts it. When an individual engages the human nervous system with that level of intensity for half a century, their observations shift from, subjective feeling to massive pattern recognition.
It becomes pure data at that point.
Right. And the data point we cannot ignore is the outcome. In these critical terminal cases, he operates with a success rate of over 90%.
Over 90% for terminal cases.
Yes. Statistically, in the realm of terminal illness, an intervention with a 90% success rate demands rigorous investigation, regardless of the terminology used to describe it.
That's a really fair point.
Right.
But what is the actual mechanism? Because he isn't in the physical room with these patients, right?
No, he's not. The framework he operates within is best understood through the lens of quantum entanglement.
Okay, quantum physics.
Right. In quantum physics, we know that two particles can become entangled, meaning the state of one instantly influences the state of the other, regardless of the physical distance between them.
So there's no physical wire connecting them?
None. The information transfers non-locally. Osman is essentially utilizing his own highly developed biological battery to achieve a state of quantum coherence. He's entangling his energetic field with the patient's failing system.
Oh, I see.
He acts as a massive, stable power source, transferring vital force to a system that has lost its charge.
And the sheer physics of that transfer explains why he has to practice 8 to 10 hours a day. It is a literal, dangerous drain on his own reserve.
Extremely dangerous, yeah.
He is taking the charge from his own battery and pushing it across that entangled connection. If he doesn't recharge his own system, doing this work could literally kill him.
It's purely mechanical fuel transfer. The stakes are absolute. And because he approaches this as a mechanic transferring literal fuel, he fundamentally rejects the most popular romanticized myths about how this energy functions in the average person.
Which is the perfect pivot to the most pervasive misunderstanding in this entire space. The myth of the sleeping snake.
Oh, yes.
Like every blog post, every pop culture reference to Kundalini describes it as this dormant serpent coiled in the base of your spine, completely asleep, just waiting for you to chant the right mantra to wake it up.
Right, and Osman's correction to that widely held belief is brutally pragmatic. He states, quite simply, if it was asleep, you would be dead.
That one sentence completely shatters the mystical illusion for me. It forced me to think of it purely as hardware.
How so?
Well, if you look at your smartphone, right, when the
Sorry.
battery drops down to 1%, the phone goes into low power mode.
Right, the screen dims.
Exactly. The background apps stop refreshing, the GPS turns off, the phone is still running, it's functional, but it's operating on an absolute trickle of power just to maintain the core operating system.
That's a great analogy.
Osman estimates that the average human being is walking around on a 10% trickle charge of this energy.
The biological equivalent of that 1% charge is your autonomic nervous system. It's the minimal threshold of energy required to keep your heart pumping blood, your lungs expanding, and your cellular metabolism functioning.
So it's not extra.
No, it isn't some separate mystical force hovering outside of you. It is the fundamental hum of your biological existence.
But the fascinating part of the source material is when Osman explains how and why this battery naturally spikes. Because it doesn't spike when you're sitting in a yoga studio trying really hard to feel enlightened.
No, it really doesn't.
It naturally surges into high power mode during two very specific biological events: deep, dreamless sleep and severe acute illness.
Which the conscious mind finds incredibly counterintuitive.
Yeah, totally backward.
Because we associate energy with the ability to run a marathon or, I don't know, solve a complex math equation, we confuse our conscious, voluntary mental energy with deep biological fuel.
Right.
Think about the physiological reality of contracting a severe influenza virus. What happens to your conscious state?
You are completely wiped out. You end up in a delirious 14-hour fever dream. You can barely lift your head off the pillow. I mean, from my perspective, I have zero energy.
From the perspective of your voluntary motor functions, yes, you have zero. But beneath the hood, your biological system is pulling massive amounts of voltage.
Oh, because it's fighting the virus.
Exactly. The system deliberately knocks your conscious mind offline, inducing that fever dream state so that the Kundalini can take full control. It surges upward from that 1% baseline to do the heavy lifting of survival.
Wow.
It orchestrates the massive increase in body temperature, the hyperproliferation of white blood cells, and the rapid regeneration of damaged tissue. It is the raw, unadulterated force powering the immune response.
So the battery cranks up, but it explicitly puts the driver to sleep so the driver doesn't waste fuel or interfere with the repairs.
That's exactly it.
But that implies a level of autonomous intelligence in the energy itself. It isn't just blind electricity flowing down a wire.
Well, the distinction between standard electrical current and prana, or kundalini, is intelligence. Osman describes this vital force as functioning similarly to energetic stem cells.
Stem cells. Okay.
Think about it. A biological stem cell possesses the inherent intelligence to scan its microscopic environment, identify a point of failure, say a torn muscle fiber, and differentiate into the exact type of tissue required to execute the repair.
Right.
Kundalini operates with that exact same diagnostic intelligence, but on a macro systemic level. It scans the entire biological and energetic framework, locates the pathology, and acts to restore homeostasis.
Which brings the entire telepathic healing claim into sharp mechanical focus. When Osman is doing critical care work, he isn't acting like a microscopic surgeon manually routing energy into a specific blocked artery in the patient's heart.
No, not at all.
He acts as the high-capacity transmitter. He sends the raw package of vital force across that quantum entanglement, but the energy itself knows its own address.
Exactly.
It arrives in the patient's system, identifies the crisis, and goes to work.
He provides the immense fuel required for the repair, and the fuel utilizes its inherent intelligence to execute the operation.
That makes so much more sense.
However, if this intelligent energy is the water, we are fundamentally required to examine the plumbing. To understand the catastrophic ways this energy can malfunction, we have to map out the literal conduits inside the human body.
We need the X-ray of the energy body. And I have to say, the source material's breakdown of this anatomy was a massive revelation for me.
It usually is for most people.
Because in traditional texts, these pipes are called nadis. There are supposedly thousands of them, but everything hinges on 3 primary channels running along the spinal column.
Those 3 channels dictate the entirety of human physical and psychological reality.
Okay, break them down for us.
The central channel, running straight up the core of the spinal column, is called the sushumna. Think of the sushumna as a biological superconductor.
A superconductor. So this is the absolute ideal. If the energy flows straight up this central pipe, it encounters zero resistance.
Precisely. The absence of resistance is the defining characteristic of samadhi. When the voltage travels up the sushumna, the physiological and psychological outcome is total clarity, deep connection, and expansive bliss.
And no negative side effects.
Right. Crucially, because it is a superconductor, there is no thermal heat generated, no pain, and no psychological distress. The nervous system handles the massive surge in voltage perfectly.
Straight up the middle equals optimal performance.
Mm-hmm.
But then we get to the side roads, and I want to spend a lot of time here because this section of the source material is a massive flashing neon warning sign for anyone currently practicing mindfulness, meditation, or breathwork.
It really is.
I was completely ignorant of this geography, and if you don't know these side roads exist, you're basically flying a plane without a dashboard.
It is the single most critical area of misdiagnosis in both the modern spiritual community and modern clinical psychology. So, flanking that central superhighway are 2 side channels. The left channel is the Ida, and the right channel is the Pingala.
Let's look at the left side first, the Ida channel. The texts correlate this with the moon, right?
Correct.
It carries a cooling resonance, it is characterized as feminine, and most importantly for our discussion, it governs the entire internal, mental, and emotional landscape of a human being. And physically, it terminates in your left nostril.
That physical termination point is vital for the mechanical interventions we'll discuss later, but yes, the Ida is the circuitry of your psychological world.
Then we have the right side, the Pingala channel. This corresponds to the sun. It is a heating resonance, masculine in nature, and it governs external action in the physical world. Your biology, your physiology, your fight or flight responses.
Right, the physical self.
And it terminates in your right nostril. So what does this all mean for the average person walking around today?
Well, it provides the mechanical explanation for a blockage. Imagine the central superconductor, the sushumna, is sealed shut.
Why would it be shut?
It gets clogged with decades of physical immobility, highly processed diets, chronic nervous system dysregulation, and unresolved psychological trauma. The central pipe becomes a solid wall.
But the energy, the 1% trickle charge, is still attempting to rise.
Right. Energy behaves like fluid dynamics. It will always seek the path of least resistance. If the upward pressure hits a solid dam in the center channel, it cannot simply stop.
It has to go somewhere.
It violently bursts outward, diverting its flow into those lateral channels.
And this is where we enter the diagnostics of disaster.
Yeah.
Because once you grasp the mechanics of a diverted energetic flow, you can decode the terrifying cautionary tales of spiritual awakenings gone horribly wrong.
It completely demystifies the fear surrounding Kundalini.
Yeah, it isn't angry spirits punishing a practitioner. It isn't a moral failing or a lack of faith. It is literally just broken plumbing failing under high pressure.
Exactly. Let's trace the exact pathology of a left side diversion. When that dammed up river of energy is forced exclusively into the Ida channel, the cooling mental circuitry is hit with an unprecedented voltage overload.
And since that channel governs emotions.
An overload here precipitates a catastrophic psychological breakdown.
And reading through the case studies, we are not talking about feeling a little melancholy or having a bad week.
No, the clinical presentation is extreme distress. It manifests as severe, unmanageable anxiety, panic attacks that seem to have no external trigger. It results in deep, crippling depression where the cognitive functions feel frozen in a dark, inescapable loop.
That sounds terrifying.
Practitioners report the terrifying resurfacing of old traumas, playing out with overwhelming, vivid intensity. In the most severe cases of Ida overload, the individual suffers a full-blown psychotic break, entirely losing their tether to shared reality.
So the cooling energy of the moon channel essentially becomes a deep psychological freeze.
Yes.
This mechanism aligns perfectly with the work of Dr. Bonnie Greenwell.
Oh, absolutely.
She was a transpersonal psychologist who spent her career meticulously documenting this exact phenomenon. She observed a modern psychological crisis, specifically in Westerners who were adopting intensive Eastern meditation practices without any of the traditional preparatory frameworks.
They were jumping straight to the high-voltage stuff.
Exactly. They were ending up in her clinical practice, experiencing what she dubbed left channel terror. They were artificially triggering the upward flow of energy. It was slamming into their stress-clogged modern center channels, diverting violently to the left, and manifesting as severe psychiatric emergencies.
Dr. Greenwell's expensive clinical observations provide the Western empirical data that perfectly validates the yogi's mechanical map. She documented the precise symptoms, and the source material explains the underlying hydraulic failure.
It maps perfectly.
Now, we must examine the exact opposite physiological catastrophe. What occurs when the central channel is blocked and the energy forces its way up the right side, the Pingala channel.
So the right side is the sun. It is the circuitry for heat, action, and physiology.
Right. When the Pingala receives an electrical load it was not designed to carry, the result is a severe physiological meltdown.
Like what?
The subjective experience reported by patients is an unbearable, agonizing heat. They describe the sensation of literally burning from the inside out, an internal fire that cannot be quenched, even though a medical thermometer might not register a clinical fever.
That's wild. And the source outlines terrifying physical symptoms, too. Severe nausea, the total inability of the gastrointestinal tract to digest food, systemic chronic inflammation that attacks the joints, and in extreme cases, the cascading failure of major organs.
It is as if the body's internal cooling system is bypassed, and the biological engine simply melts down from the friction.
For a historical, heavily documented textbook case of Pingala overload, the literature points directly to Gopi Krishna.
Yes, Gopi Krishna.
Anyone who has ever researched the history of Kundalini knows that name. He documented his own spontaneous awakening in the mid-20th century, and his memoir reads like a decade of absolute unmitigated agony.
It really does.
He was a man who meditated constantly, employing pure, intense mental focus. But he completely neglected the physical preparation of his body.
And he paid the price.
He ended up bedridden for years. He felt like he was being consumed by a localized internal fire. He was physically unable to eat solid food without severe pain, and he genuinely believed the process was going to kill him.
Gopi Krishna is the ultimate cautionary tale of right channel overload. He commanded the energy to rise through sheer force of will and intense mental concentration, but his physical vessel, the nadis, were rigid and unprepared.
The Sushumna was closed.
The Sushumna remained closed, the energy found the right-hand path of least resistance, and his biological hardware nearly burned to the ground.
Which triangulates all the warnings we see from the foundational figures in this space. Like Swami Sivananda, an absolute giant in the field of yoga, laid down these warnings decades ago.
He certainly did.
Sivananda constantly, repetitively preached about the absolute necessity of purity. But by purity, he wasn't talking about moral chastity. He was talking about a pure, robust physical vessel and a completely unclogged nervous system.
Yes.
He warned that you cannot introduce a massive electrical charge into an impure, fragile container.
The vessel will simply shatter under the load.
The analogy that crystallized this for me was electrical resistance.
Yeah.
Imagine you take a massive industrial 2,000-volt power cable and you try to plug it directly into a cheap plastic kitchen toaster.
Right.
You are not going to get a better piece of toast. You are going to get a catastrophic electrical fire that burns your kitchen to the ground.
The physics of the human nervous system are entirely unforgiving. And while it's easy for a modern listener to hear about Gopi Krishna or monks in Himalayan caves and think, well, that is an extreme scenario. I'm not meditating in a cave, so I am safe.
Right, I'm just sitting on my couch.
Oh, exactly. But Osman issues a dire, highly relevant warning for our current society. The argument presented is that we are accidentally, collectively triggering this exact high-voltage mechanism right now, straight from the comfort of our living room couches.
This is the section of the deep dive that made me physically put my phone in another room. We are dealing with a modern crisis that I can only describe as A doom-scrolling awakening.
A doom-scrolling awakening. That's a powerful way to frame it.
Because the source material strips away all the cultural baggage and completely redefines what meditation actually is on a mechanical level.
If you remove the incense, the chanting, and the specific postures, meditation is defined by its mechanical function, known in Sanskrit as dharana.
Dharan.
Dharana translates to prolonged, single-pointed focus. It is the sustained act of locking your cognitive attention onto a singular stream of information, excluding all peripheral input for an extended period of time.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because if dharana is simply the mechanics of single-pointed focus, where are we applying that intense focus in modern life?
To our phones.
We apply it to our glowing rectangles. Think about the physiological trance you fall into when you are doom-scrolling on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube Shorts for 2 or 3 hours straight.
Your blink rate plummets.
It does. Your breathing becomes incredibly shallow and restricted in the upper chest. You lose all spatial awareness of the room around you, and your perception of time completely distorts.
You have entered a profound, deep trance state. And this is where Osman's personal context is actually fascinating.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Well, he relies on screen readers for up to 13 hours a day due to his blindness. He recognizes the sheer energetic pull of digital focus. He understands the mechanics of locking the mind onto a digital stream.
And I want to highlight something really interesting about Osman's teaching style here for you listening. If you listen to his materials, he constantly uses incredibly vivid, highly detailed visual metaphors to describe energy and the body.
He does.
You would think a blind practitioner would rely on auditory or tactile metaphors. But the reason he uses visual descriptors is that he only lost his sight very recently, in May of 2023.
Right.
He lived a fully sighted life for decades before that. So he is explaining these invisible mechanics using the visual language of a man who has actually seen the physical world.
That visual memory allows him to bridge the gap between the invisible mechanics of energy and the tangible reality we experience. And the fundamental unbreakable rule of that invisible energy is where attention goes, energy flows.
Where attention goes, energy flows.
By staring into that screen with unwavering, single-pointed focus for hours, modern humans are unwittingly performing a highly advanced, intense meditation technique. You are inadvertently signaling the biological battery, demanding that the Kundalini push upward toward the brain to sustain that extreme cognitive focus.
Which creates what we have to call the catastrophe of the modern vessel.
Yeah.
Because the signal is sent, the energy begins to rise. But the modern human hasn't done an ounce of the required preparation to handle the voltage.
None. The physical architecture is completely compromised. The central channel, the sushumna, is functionally rusted shut.
Because of our lifestyle.
Exactly. It's blocked by decades of sitting hunched over desks, the accumulation of highly processed inflammatory foods in the gut, a chronically dysregulated nervous system stuck in low-level fight or flight, and the deep, unresolved emotional baggage that modern society tends to medicate rather than process.
So we have this massive upward thrust of energy triggered by the smartphone trance. It slams into the concrete wall of the modern lifestyle blockage in the center channel. It cannot go up the sushumna. It physically cannot. So it violently diverts.
And we see the societal results of that diversion everywhere.
We really do. It blasts into the left channel, the ida. And the biology of that perfectly explains the unprecedented global modern epidemic of severe anxiety, depression, dissociation, and mental health crises.
Or it blasts into the right channel.
All right, the pingala, which perfectly maps to the modern epidemic of chronic burnout, systemic inflammation, autoimmune disorders, and adrenal fatigue. We are actively revving a finely tuned, high-performance engine while the parking brake is permanently rusted to the rotors.
It is a profound, unifying diagnostic hypothesis for the current state of global health. We have inadvertently overloaded the neural circuits of billions of people simultaneously. The entire population is playing with high-voltage wiring without a schematic.
Okay, so if the diagnosis is that we are all accidentally revving the engine and frying our own side channels, how do we fix the machine?
The solution is remarkably straightforward.
And what I genuinely appreciate about Osman's solution is that it's totally unsentimental. He doesn't prescribe a retreat to the mountains to chase enlightenment. The protocol simply clean the pipes.
Preparation is the entirety of the protocol. There is a misconception that you need to actively awaken the energy. You don't. The energy naturally wants to rise, much like a cork naturally bobs to the surface of water.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Your only functional job is to remove the friction that is holding it down.
And the source provides 3 very specific, highly mechanical tools to remove that friction. The first tool is mechanical breathwork, specifically alternate nostril breathing, known as annulum velum.
Yes.
Now, I have encountered this in casual yoga classes, and I'll be honest, I always viewed it as just a mild relaxation technique. The idea that physically holding one nostril closed and breathing through the other could resolve deep-seated psychological trauma or systemic inflammation seemed like a massive stretch to me.
It seems like a stretch until you apply the anatomical map we just established.
Right.
The left channel, the ida, physically terminates in the left nostril. The right channel, the pingala, physically terminates in the right nostril. Because of that anatomical reality, your nostrils are not just breathing holes, they are manual access ports to your entire autonomic nervous system.
So it isn't just about oxygenating the blood, it is the manual manipulation of the circuitry.
The biology bears this out. When you block the right nostril and inhale exclusively through the left, you are forcing air and therefore prana, the energetic current, strictly through the cooling mental ida channel.
Okay.
This physically stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, lowering heart rate and reducing cortisol. When you switch and breathe exclusively through the right nostril, you force the current through the heating physical pingala channel, stimulating the sympathetic nervous system and increasing physiological readiness.
It is exactly like taking a wire brush or a high-pressure pipe cleaner and aggressively running it down the left pipe and then running it down the right pipe, alternating back and forth, actively flushing out the accumulated sludge.
It acts as a manual hydraulic switch. By alternating, you are equalizing the pneumatic pressure between the right and left hemispheres of the brain and the right and left physiological systems of the body.
And if you do this consistently,
If you consistently daily clear those side channels, the pressure stabilizes. And the mechanics dictate that when the pressure between the side channels is perfectly equalized, the central channel, the sushumna, is naturally forced open, allowing the energy to safely route straight up the middle.
the breathwork switch is tool number one. Tool number two is probably the most controversial in fluffy spiritual circles, but mechanically, it makes the most sense. The yogi insists on lifting heavy things, extreme physical exertion.
He is absolutely unyielding on this requirement. True spiritual and energetic preparation demands a robust, resilient physical vessel. He advocates for intense resistance training, demanding martial arts, and deep cardiovascular exertion.
Why? I can hear you asking, why does a yogi need to deadlift? How does muscle mass equate to spiritual safety?
The mechanism is hydraulic pressure. The nadis, the subtle energetic channels, become stagnant and rigid if the physical body is sedentary. The energy pools, calcifies, and creates massive resistance.
Okay, so how does lifting help?
Intense physical exertion acts as a massive biological pump. The sheer force of contracting muscles under heavy loads forces stagnant fluid and trapped energy out of the microchannels. It ensures that the pathways remain wide, elastic, and capable of handling high voltage.
And the specific case study the source uses to illustrate this is fascinating. He points directly to Joe Rogan.
That's a perfect modern example.
Right. Now, regardless of what you think of his podcast, Joe Rogan is famously open about consuming intense, high-dose psychedelics compounds like DMT and psilocybin. In the mechanical context of our deep dive, a massive dose of a psychedelic is a high-voltage energetic event. It violently and artificially forces the kundalini upwards.
For the average modern person with a blocked sushumna, a high-voltage event like a heavy DMT trip carries an immense risk of catastrophic left channel overload.
Because the center is blocked.
Exactly. The energy hits the block, diverts left, and results in severe paranoia, prolonged psychological trauma, or a persistent psychotic break because the mental circuitry simply melts under the load.
But Rogan doesn't suffer from psychosis after these trips. He integrates them and goes to work the next day. And the yogi explicitly states that this is because of his physical routine. Rogan has decades of heavy kettlebell lifting, brutal, exhaustive martial arts training, and intense physiological stress conditioning, like extreme ice baths and saunas.
Rogan has unknowingly engineered an industrial-grade container for his energy. His physical vessel is literally a tank.
A tank.
Yes. The internal pipes are so wide, so elastic, and so clear from the hydraulic pressure of his daily physical training that when the massive sudden voltage of a psychedelic experience hits his system, the energy flows cleanly and easily. It doesn't snag on microscopic blockages, the friction is minimal, and therefore it doesn't short-circuit his psychological framework.
Build the tank, clear the pipes is pure engineering. Okay, tool number 3 is intellectual study, reading deep, complex philosophy. engaging with difficult scientific concepts, or pursuing rigorous academic subjects. This isn't just a recommendation to make you better at cocktail party trivia, is it?
No, it serves a highly specific energetic function. In the yogic anatomical system, the vital energy takes on different forms and functions depending on where it is localized in the body.
Right.
When the energy successfully rises and reaches the head, it operates as udana, the upward moving energy associated with complex thought, speech, neuroplasticity, and higher cognition.
So, if you successfully clear the pipes with the alternate nostril breathing and you build the tank by lifting heavy weights, this massive surge of energy is going to reach your head.
And you have to give it a job to do.
Exactly. If it reaches your brain and your daily routine consists of sitting on the couch watching mindless reality television, the energy has no constructive outlet. It stagnates in the skull. You develop chronic tension headaches, severe brain fog, and a deep, restless agitation.
Precisely. The energy demands a conduit. Rigorous, complex intellectual study exercises the udana. It forces that high-voltage energy to be metabolized constructively.
Building new pathways.
Exactly. It utilizes the fuel to forge new neural pathways, increase synaptic density, and radically expand cognitive capacity, rather than just building up destructive internal pressure in the cranium.
Breathe, lift, read. It is almost frustratingly practical. But the promise of the source material is that if we actually do this, if we consistently clean the pipes and build the industrial container, the payoff is incredible.
The baseline changes entirely.
It isn't just about avoiding a psychotic break or healing from a disease. That is baseline survival. The payoff is a massive, quantifiable upgrade in real-world human performance.
When you systematically remove internal energetic friction, every single biological system in the body becomes exponentially more fuel efficient.
There's a great anecdote in the material about a professional fighter named David. David was an elite athlete, but he was stuck at a hard physiological plateau of 120 push-ups. His engine was completely maxed out.
He hit a wall.
Yes. Osman intervened, unblocked his specific energy centers, and put him on the strict breathwork protocols to clear his side channels. In exactly 14 days, David's maximum output jumped from 120 push-ups to 200 push-ups.
A near doubling of physical output in 2 weeks. From a strictly physiological sports science standpoint, that kind of strength gain is impossible to achieve through muscle hypertrophy in 14 days.
Right, you can't build muscle that fast.
You cannot. The muscle fibers themselves did not change. The neural signal changed.
Because the internal friction was eliminated. When your channels are blocked, your physical body is literally fighting itself. The nervous system is wasting massive amounts of ATP and biological fuel just trying to force the motor signals through a clogged neural pipe.
Creating contradictory signals.
Yes, between agonist and antagonist muscles. When the yogi cleared David's pipes, suddenly 100% of the biological fuel was delivered directly to the muscle with perfect neural alignment.
The mechanical efficiency skyrockets. It is the exact difference between trying to drive a car on the highway with the parking brake fully engaged and finally releasing the brake. The engine doesn't need to work harder. The resistance is simply gone.
I completely buy the physical efficiency argument. The biology supports it. But I have to admit, I rolled my eyes so hard at the next claim in the source material.
Magnetism effect.
Yes, the magnetism effect. The claim is that consistently doing these specific breathing exercises can literally help you find your soulmate. I read that and immediately thought I had stumbled into a late-night infomercial. It sounds so incredibly cheap.
It's very easy to dismiss it as mystical marketing. But if we discard the word soulmate and break the phenomenon down into the strict language of evolutionary biology and biological signaling, it becomes perfectly logical.
Walk me through the biological signaling of true love. How does breathing through my nose change my dating life?
Osman provides the case study of a 38-year-old man and a 32-year-old woman. Both individuals were chronically unlucky in love, constantly facing rejection, and fundamentally unable to sustain a meaningful relationship.
Okay.
He placed both of them on a strict 20 to 30-minute daily protocol of the annulum-vilum balancing exercises. Within months, both individuals had successfully found highly compatible partners and were married.
Because the breathing exercises change their broadcast signal.
The biology of human interaction is dictated by the autonomic nervous system. Think about an individual whose energy is constantly, chronically leaking out of the left channel, the ida.
Their nervous system is broadcasting deep depression.
Right. Emotional neediness and psychological instability. Or consider someone leaking heavily out of the right channel, the pingala. They're projecting chronic cortisol spikes, underlying anger, and physiological agitation.
And people pick up on that.
On a primal evolutionary level, human beings are wired to instantly subconsciously assess the fitness of potential mates based on these microsignals. If you are broadcasting anxiety and stress via your vagal tone and microexpressions, you are signaling to the world, I am a drain on resources. My biology is unstable.
It is static on the radio station.
Yeah.
No one wants to tune into a frequency that is mostly screeching static, but when you execute the annulum-villam protocol, when you balance the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems, the Ida and Pingala, your energy stops leaking out the sides.
It flows cleanly up the center sushumna.
You become physiologically and emotionally centered.
And a centered human being broadcasts a radically different biological signal. When cortisol drops and vagal tone improves, your vocal resonance deepens, your microexpressions relax, and your pheromonal output changes.
That makes total sense.
You project vitality, deep emotional stability, calmness, and quiet power. Evolutionarily, that specific signal is incredibly magnetic. It is highly attractive because it indicates a high-value, secure, robust partner capable of navigating stress. It isn't a magic spell. You are simply repairing your biological transmitter so that it broadcasts a clear, highly attractive frequency.
It is just optimized biology. And the ultimate payoff of this balanced high-efficiency system happens at the very top of the architecture in the brain. The yogi explains that when the balanced energy finally reaches the crown of the head without friction, it fills a specific anatomical and energetic cavity called the Brahmarandra.
The energizing of the Brahmarandra is a concept echoed by numerous historical figures who successfully stabilized this vital force. When this cavity is properly illuminated with high voltage, without the distorting influence of left-channel anxiety or right-channel aggression, it unlocks an entirely new paradigm of intelligence.
And the specific word the source used to describe this intelligence really struck me. It is nuance.
Nuance?
It isn't just that your processing speed increases or you can do complex math faster. The ultimate superpower of an awakened mind is nuance. We live in a world that is aggressively deeply polarized. Every algorithm, every social pressure forces you to choose black or white, left or right or wrong.
It's all binary now.
Right. But a fully energized, frictionless brain possesses the cognitive capacity to hold two completely opposing thoughts simultaneously, to examine both of them without triggering an emotional fight-or-flight reaction, and to synthesize a higher truth from the contradiction. That is the ultimate biological upgrade.
The capacity to process immense complexity without defaulting to tribalism, panic, or cognitive dissonance. It is the defining hallmark of a truly evolved, highly functioning human mind.
As we wrap up this massive exploration of the biological machine, we have to reiterate Osman's very stern warning to you, because we have just spent an hour discussing how amazing this optimized state is, and the natural temptation is for a listener to think, oh, I'll just skip the breathing and go try to become a telepathic quantum healer this weekend.
That is the exact opposite of the protocol. He explicitly warns against attempting to replicate his high-stakes interventions.
He literally risks his biological life connecting his battery to dying patients via entanglement. That 8 to 10 hours of daily practice is the mandatory cost of doing business at the razor's edge of life and death.
He is absolutely not encouraging weekend warriors to play with high-voltage quantum transfers.
If you, or someone you know, is dealing with a critical, terminal, life-or-death medical situation, the source material specifically directs you to his resource, which is yogawellness786.com. That is where his specialized, high-stakes telepathic intervention operates on a premium level.
But for the rest of us, for everyone listening who just wants to stop feeling chronically burned out, perpetually anxious, and mentally exhausted, the prescription is ultimate self-empowerment.
You don't need a guru to save you. You need to take responsibility for your own biological machine. Do the alternate nostril breathing. Go to the gym and lift heavy things to build the hydraulic pressure. Read deep, challenging books. Fix your own plumbing.
And Osman actually provides a completely free 5-minute yoga and meditation program on that same website, yogawellness786.com, to help people start clearing those side channels immediately.
The tools for self-regulation are freely available. The requirement is simply the discipline to apply them. And that leaves us with one final, incredibly provocative thought to send you off with.
Let's hear it.
We established earlier that dharana, intense, single-pointed focus, mechanically forces this massive vital energy to rise up the spine. And if billions of people across the globe are currently locked into their glowing screens, inadvertently executing deep dharana on their social media feeds for hours every single day, while simultaneously completely neglecting the physical integrity of their biological vessels.
The implications are staggering. Are we currently living through a mass, collective, and completely botched Kundalini awakening on a global scale?
Is that the mechanical explanation for why the modern world feels so unbelievably chaotic, polarized, and inflamed? Have we essentially plugged a billion broken, rusted toasters into a high-voltage power grid all at once? We wanted to give you the blueprint of your energetic plumbing today. Hopefully the mechanics are a little bit clearer. It is something profound for you to chew on the next time you find yourself doom scrolling at 2 a.m. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. Catch you next time.